that's on once is on here. Okay, so if we hop into Craig's Design and Landscape Service, and we're going to go through this probably faster than I wanted to, but this class will basically bleed over into next week as well. So what we don't get to today, we can hop on and look at tomorrow. Okay, so if we look at Craig's Design and Landscape Service, and again, if you're new to the class, wondering how in the world do we get to Craig's Design and Landscape Service to their QuickBooks, again, if you go to go.paycpa.com/class, there will be right down here under Test Drive Companies. If you click on the QBO Advanced Sample Company, that'll take you to the company. So again, you're free to follow along just watching me, but if you want to actually get in and click around as well, you're free to open that up on your screen as well. Okay, so right here, Craig's Design and Landscape Service. So you can see the basic layout of their profit and loss. They have income, design income, and discounts given, landscape service, job materials. So they actually have it split out across multiple different categories, which I think is a great start. It's not my favorite income statement or profit and loss statement that I've ever seen, but they do have some nice categories split out there. The one that we struggle with a little bit, so when we come down here to cost of goods sold, they actually only have one account, one category, and so we're gonna come back and look at that. As we get down into their expenses, for me it's difficult to really understand their expenses. They're kind of, I mean, they're listed alphabetical, and so they're listed in alphabetical order. But as far as really just taking a quick glance through their expenses, I don't feel like they make a whole lot of sense. And so we get down here, we find out, okay, they total expenses, so we at least know what their total expenses are. And then they actually have some other expenses, some miscellaneous, and we get down here to the bottom, net income number. So this is the sample one. So we're actually going to do a little bit of work to it to really get it to where I feel like it'll be a lot more useful for us to look at and to analyze. So if we come back over here, profit and loss. So going back to Craig's Design and Landscape Service, the different income categories, they have quite a few. As we come over to here, it's a template, so we have 10. But we could start to mirror theirs a little bit. So for example, they have, as one of their income categories, they have, let's just say, pest control services. We're going to copy that one. So if I come over here into the template, and we're going to place our income category number 1 with pest control services. And we're not going to walk through every single one of these, but just to give you an idea of where I'm going with it. So pest control services, obviously they're going out and spraying for bugs, I guess. If you live in St. George, there's plenty of bugs. Got to get them sprayed for about every month. But that's what they're doing as far as one of their services that they provide. So now as we come down here to cost, and this is where I see people get a little bit confused, because we get the income categories, this is where we're making money, this is what we're calling our services, but then when we come down here to cost, sometimes it's, what do we put in our costs? Can we just lump them all together? Can we split them out? I'll tell you, as far as reporting this on a tax return, really the IRS, they want pretty much the bare basics. So if you lumped everything together, called it sales, reported that to the IRS, they would be just fine with that. But as far as really looking at your business and trying to understand it and trying to make heads and tails of it, if everything's lumped together in one account, then not saying that it's impossible. And again, every business is unique and a little bit different, but it's definitely going to be maybe a little bit harder to understand some of this stuff. So we'll come down here to cost, and what I would actually call these is I would almost start to mirror your income accounts. So we could actually copy this, bring it down here, and we could call it pest control. So instead of services, we're going to call it costs. Okay. So then what we start to do is as we go month to month, so we start in January, this is the 12-month profit and loss statement. We have it laid out, all of our income and costs for January, February, We get all the way over to the end column, and it'll give us our total. And again, QuickBooks will do this for us. It's easier to teach it and to explain it in this spreadsheet, and then we'll hop into QuickBooks and look at it again. So for example, right here, pest control services. Maybe during the month of January, I don't know, we're just going to plug in some numbers. We did $10,000 in pest control services. And so that would be our income for January for pest control services. Now, how do we tie that to costs? So thinking of pest control services, usually when somebody comes to your house and they spray for bugs, or your business or wherever they're doing it, you want to think of all the direct costs. So if you were running a pest control company, every time you went and sprayed bugs at somebody's house, you probably need to buy like the bug spray or whatever they mix up in their tanks. And so our actual cost would be the cost of that spray that goes in that tank to then spray for those bugs. So, and hopefully nobody's out there that loves bugs. But we're going to come here and we're going to say maybe for the whole entire month to do $10,000 worth of jobs, it cost us $1,200 in the chemical or whatever the spray that we use. So now we can start to see $10,000 in income, cost $1,200, which gives us a gross profit of $8,800. Okay, so now we come down here to our admin expenses. But I guess before I do that, is there any questions as far as what I've got going on here, as far as income, costs? And if you're on Zoom, definitely feel free to chime in. If you have any questions, I will take all the questions you guys have. If I don't hear any questions, I'll just keep going. Okay, so income, cost. Now we're down to expenses. So the different buckets that we have here, we have the income bucket. This is all the money coming into the business. We have the costs. These are our direct costs to produce that income. And then we have our expenses. And so these are everything that's more of an indirect cost of producing that income. So examples are, when we spend money for accounting, maybe we have somebody helping us with the accounting, or we have a CPA doing the tax return and stuff like that. Advertising, especially if we're running a pest control company, we're going to be maybe doing door-to-door ads, radio ads, different types of expenses. So we're just going to come through here and we're going to start to put in some numbers. Maybe $100 for accounting, $20. Again, you could kind of just work through here, pop in all the numbers that you want. Really what we're doing is we're grouping all the admin expenses together. And this is like my favorite way of doing it. I feel like I've analyzed a lot of different financial statements over the years, and the ones that are able to group some of these expenses together, it really helps analyze the business a little bit better. So under admin, we come down here and we get our total admin cost. And the other thing that this template really becomes helpful for and useful for is, I don't know if anybody on here has ever done a budget or a forecast, but basically what we do is we look at our business and we generally look at the last 12 months. So we say, okay, over the last 12 months, how did we do? Did we make money? Did we lose money? Where's our business at? And so if we lost money, then generally there's two problems. One is either we didn't bring in enough income. If there's not enough money coming in to pay the bills, that'll create a loss. The other thing is maybe we have a lot of income coming in, but our expenses are just out of control. Maybe something's crept on our rent. Maybe our rent just went out of control or something. But our expenses are they're out of balance. And so in this example, we can actually come through here and we can actually see what this looks like. So admin expenses, think of that as one bucket. The next bucket would be all of our facility expenses. So this is everything, and this really probably more or less pertains to a business that actually has a facility. They're renting a building. If you're not renting a building, then you probably aren't, you most likely won't have any facility costs. But just pretend like this bug business, they're renting a building, and so they have an alarm system, They have, building maintenance every month that they have to do. They have utilities. They have rent, and maybe for whatever reason their rent just went out of control. It's $8,000 a month now. Snow removal, we'll put 0 there for St. George. Not a lot of snow removal in St. George. Telephone. Again, you would customize this to fit your business. But what we're doing again is we're grouping all of these expenses together. So instead of just sorting every expense A to Z, we're grouping them admin expenses, facility expenses, and getting a total. The next big grouping that I generally see with businesses are your employee expenses. So that's like the third and kind of final big group of expenses that we have. So with employees, sometimes we send them to get professional development or education. We spend some money on them there. There's insurance we have to pay. Really the big one is payroll. So maybe our payroll is, we'll actually drop this down a little bit. Maybe all of our employees are making $1,000 a month. We'll put some numbers in there. So now what we can see is we've grouped all the expenses together. We actually have a spot if your business has loans, and technically if you had loans, they would never actually go on a profit and loss statement. But as far as understanding our cash flows, it really helps us get a good idea of is our business able to cash flow all the expenses plus all the loan payments that we have. So in this case, we could even say maybe the business, they went out and purchased some vehicles, they have a fleet, and so maybe their loan number one is they're paying $2,000 a month for some of these vehicles. And so you can see net income, it's actually a net loss. In cash available, negative $6,460 because it takes into account that loan. And so what we've done is a couple things on this income statement. So we've grouped all of our income categories together. We have our total income up here. We have all the costs related to that income is our second grouping right here under costs, which gives us our gross profit. So in this case, they actually have a pretty healthy, good gross profit, $8,800. But then what happens is we get down here into our expenses. That's where things start to creep up. We have our first bucket of expenses, which is our admin expenses, $460. Our second bucket of expenses is our facility, $8,640. And then our employees being the third bucket of expenses, $4,160. And so you can see once we add all those expenses together, $13,260. So definitely not enough money coming in to support these expenses, which then pushes us into a net loss. And then on top of that, then we have to pay loans. And so we're going to pay $2,000 in loans. So now essentially what's happened is we've burned through $6,460 in cash. And so the reason I like this spreadsheet is you can play it. QuickBooks is nice, and this is a QuickBooks class. But the reason I pull some of these spreadsheets into play is because to really fully utilize and understand your QuickBooks, a lot of times you have to export the data, you have to play around with the data. It's just, you're not going to spend 100% of your time just in QuickBooks. And so, man, we have like 3 minutes. Okay. What we can do, well, let me just walk through this real quick. I'll be fast. To get your data out of QuickBooks, you can export pretty much any report. So anytime you come in here to the reports, you can always export these reports to Excel. So if you have Excel and love working in Excel, that's one option. I actually use Google Sheets for just about everything now. And so that's also an option now too, is we can export these into Google Sheets. So some options we have there. But what I want to do, how are you guys on time? You probably got to get out of here like right at 7. I'm trying to think time-wise. So what I'll do, again, I apologize. This like tonight has been like the class from. It has been so crazy. We were late, definitely late getting started, just because at the college we definitely ran into some technology issues, and then Facebook, I feel like it failed us. It just wasn't quite working like was promised, and so um, what the game plan will be for. So hopefully this is a good introduction, a good intro to what we're going to be doing with these reports. Again, when I think about customizing reports, it's things that we're going to do inside of QuickBooks to customize them inside of QuickBooks. So then when we export them into an Excel spreadsheet or a Google sheet, then we can further start to work with them and understand our numbers from there. So where we'll pick up on where we'll pick up next class is we're going to take. I know there's a lot of question as far as how do we merge accounts, how do we create main accounts and then put sub accounts under them, how do we literally take the chart of accounts. So when I say chart of accounts, we covered that a couple classes ago, but just for anybody that might have missed it, how do we take our chart of accounts and really totally just restructure it? Sometimes we can, as we go throughout our business month by month and year by year, we get all these new accounts, and sometimes we just need to go in there and just really clean up everything up and have a good overhaul of all of our chart of accounts. And so that's really going to be the focus of class next week is how do we start to clean that up? And maybe you're thinking, hey, I don't want to clean anything up. You feel like your QuickBooks is where it needs to be. That's could be the case right now, but I'm telling you, at some point, you're going to pull some reports, and you're just going to be looking at it, wondering, how in the world can I rearrange some of this stuff? And so what we'll do next week is we'll go over how to do main accounts, sub accounts, which means sometimes we have to actually change the type. Again, in our chart of accounts, we do stuff by name, by type, by detail type. So we're going to go through all of that next class. So if you stuck around with me, we'll see if there's anybody left on Zoom. If you stuck around with me the whole time, I feel like you guys deserve a medal, because that was an interesting class. I've never quite had one that crazy where we just couldn't get anything working. But thank you for sticking around. Again, I'll make this recording available. It's not going to automatically email it out like it generally does, but I'll make sure that I get a copy of this posted probably to the Facebook group. And if you have any questions between now and next week, feel free to reach out to me. But as far as the Zoom, we'll go ahead and end that, and we'll pick up where we left off next week.